What is up, podcast world? Welcome to episode 7 of the What Are We Thinking podcast.
What are we thinking, family?
Yes.
Tuning in right now.
You guys are family now.
We love you so much.
You've made it to episode 7. You obviously care a lot.
Or you hate us a lot. I don't know. It's differing opinions,
Yes.
mixed reviews, no doubt. But hey, speaking of reviews, even if you hate this podcast, leave a comment. Let us know that you hate it. Share it. Let other people know not to watch it. But if you do like it, continue to like,
Yes,
subscribe,
absolutely.
share, review, all this stuff. It helps it get out there. If this stuff has been valuable for you, helpful in any way, then we want it to be helpful for other people as well. So just kind of let people know that this is out there, and we would be super appreciative if you would do that for us. So
That's awesome.
Josh, how's your week been, dude?
Man, well, my week is going to be really good tomorrow. I'm going to the beach.
Yes, it is.
I'm excited.
Let's
I'm
go.
going to wear some really short shorts and show off my dad bod.
He's going to do exactly what we talked about
Last
not
week.
doing last week. Actually, no.
We did say the beach.
We said the
is
beach was
acceptable.
appropriate.
Splash
Also,
pad.
Josh doesn't have a gross dad bod. He's got a very good-looking physique. I hope that's not weird for me to say.
No, it's
But
not.
you put a lot of work into it. You eat healthy.
Right.
So, you know what I'm saying? Take your shirt off and enjoy it. Whatever. And you're at the beach. So, really,
Yes.
it doesn't even matter what you look like. You go to the beach, dude, take your shirt off and enjoy. No one cares. Appropriate
So
times.
the beach is this week. That's going to be fun. Going to have to get some seniors that are going on a senior
Are
trip.
you flying?
Yes, I am.
Are you worried about contracting the coronavirus as you fly?
No. I don't want to drive.
I love the ESA.
I don't want to drive at all. That was my biggest thing about going on this trip because this was a sudden trip. My son needed someone to help get them signed into or to rent a place for a week
Oh,
because he's not 25 years old.
that doesn't
so,
sound terrifying at all.
No, it's not. Especially when your son cannot take care of your own house when he's there. So, no worries. It's going to be fun.
It's
I'm just
okay.
gonna pray
I don't know that
everything's
life at all.
okay.
I was never an irresponsible teenager.
Oh yeah, me either. I was
God.
terrible. I didn't do anything when I was a kid.
It's funny hearing me say it. It's really funny hearing Josh say it.
Yeah,
because
I was not responsible. My mom cleaned our house all the time, all day long, like every day. So I didn't have to really.
right.
But that's going to be fun. I'm excited to get away for a few days with my family. Last night, we had a great time. We had several of our friends,
Yes.
black friends and leaders from different places come and talk about racism and growing up in West Tennessee. That was
Yeah.
amazing. So this
Yeah.
week's been really cool.
It has
to
been
be
a cool
honest.
week.
It's been
It
a
has
really
been
cool
a cool
week.
week.
We had church for the first time Sunday. That was
Oh.
amazing.
It was
Just
dude.
to have a heartbeat back in the building, you know, like
Yes,
that was really
yes.
cool. So my week's been great. How about you, man?
Dude, you said it all, man. We had church this Sunday.
It was good.
That's a breath of fresh air. Ha! See what I did there? Didn't even mean to say that. That was the
Oh,
title
sermon
of
title.
the sermon this weekend, but I didn't mean to do that. I did not
intended.
have that planned out. But it was a breath of fresh air, getting to see everybody. It was a cool learning experience because we initially assumed that it was going to be a packed house. And I'll say this on the podcast. You know, we assumed it was going to be a packed house, kind of like it was the first Sunday that we opened up here at the Highland campus, where we had almost 700 people. So we're just kind of expecting that. We got things ready for that. And then, to our surprise, it was not exactly that way. We still had tons of people, though, that tuned in, leaned in online to be a part of it. So major props to everybody who did do that. And it's totally understandable that it wasn't packed. There's probably only 1,000 reasons. But, of course, we're still in the coronavirus saga. Like that's not over. By any stretch of the imagination. It's vacation season. All of our beloved college students are at home right now. They're not in town. And we haven't been going to church for 3 months straight. People are used to doing it at home, or they're used to not going at all. So it's like we're all having to get back in game shape. But, man, it was still so fun. It was so good to see our church family. The 9 a.m. was actually really hard for me. It was funny. I was telling everybody this afterwards. Just nerve-wracking a little bit because it was nerve-wracking just preaching to a camera for the first few weeks, but then I got so used to that. I mean, I've been doing it for a quarter of a year now. So then we come in 9 a.m. and there's 100-plus people in the room, and it was actually it actually took me by surprise. It was actually kind of hard, and I kept finding myself getting distracted and stuff. But then by 11, I feel like everything
Yeah.
kind of like shaped up. But man, the rest of my week's been good. We had some friends visit this past weekend that were in our youth group, but now they've turned into good friends. And then we have some friends visiting this weekend, Father's Day weekend. It's been sunny outside.
So nice.
My wife is sick right now. She got a little bit of sinus infection.
That
Nothing crazy.
It's that time though.
But we've been looking at houses. So that's been a lot of fun. We don't want to have to. We just have decided if it's a house we're going to have to remodel, we're not going to take a chance on it. So we've been doing that. That's always a lot of fun, meeting with the bank and stuff like that. So hopefully within the next couple of months we'll get to move into a place and get out of that little apartment.
A dog, then a house.
I know, and then we'll have kids. Like, and maybe I don't know what our thought is we can have one more, maybe like a year and 3 months of just us. And then if we wait a year and 3 months and we get pregnant, then we'll have a full 2 years left of just us. And then after that, we will have been married for about going on 5 years. After that, if we wait that whole time, we will have been married for about 5 years. And that's what we set out to do from the beginning, is we wanted to have about 5 years of marriage of just us time, just to hang out, enjoy, be young. Man. So that's our goal. I mean, God's blown our minds already. So, I'm down for whatever he wants, but that's like our plan of action right
That's
now.
really cool.
We'll see what happens. We have baby names, though. Not going to tell you what those baby names are because I don't want you people to steal them. But we do have them. We have them ready. We have a boy name and a girl name.
Man,
we may even
awesome.
have a second girl name, but we don't have a second boy name. So we're ready for 2 kids as of this point.
Don't say that. You'll have twins.
I would prefer that. We even have tattoos like planned out for our kids right now. I even know what tattoo I'm going to get in honor of my son and my daughter. I know where it's going to be. I mean, all of that. So we're ready. So
That's
just
so cool.
pray for us that we can have kids, that we have kids, and that they are healthy when they come.
That's so cool. You ready for some headlines?
Yeah, dude.
Let's
Hit
do
me
it.
with something special.
Okay. So, Quaker Oat brand is canceling Aunt Jemima.
I'm not laughing at Aunt Jemima. I'm laughing when you say Quaker Oat brand. I was
That's
not
right.
prepared for that. It's been so heavy the past couple of months, and you opened it up talking about oatmeal. And I was like, what kind of headline is this?
Quaker Oats. Aunt Jemima brand is based on a racial stereotype.
Mm-hmm.
They will change the name and packaging. There will be no more Aunt Jemima pancake syrup.
And it's awesome. And it's great. I think we should continue to do that. I think we should find areas in our culture that have been racially influenced in negative ways like that, and I think we should change it. I don't believe in the cancel culture in that when someone does one thing wrong or whatever, that you demonize that person forever, especially if they're trying to change that or grow from that. Like how can people grow if we just never give an opportunity? Mm-hmm. But I'm definitely an advocate of change. When there needs to be change, let's change it. So I like that.
So another pretty top popular news item is taking down statues isn't enough. We've seen a plethora of statues being taken down.
Plethora.
Plethora.
That is a new way to say that word. I have not heard that one before.
So you've had a plethora.
Plethora.
Of statues. It's a lot.
It sounds like an older lady name or something. Hey, Miss Plethora.
How are you today, Miss Plethora? I'm good, Johnny.
Plethora.
She's blind in one eye. That's terrible.
Wow.
So anyway, taking down statues. Well, of course, we've seen that everywhere. A plethora of that, actually. So there's a headline. We need to. He said it's not enough that we do that.
Okay.
We need to radically rethink how we celebrate power.
Okay.
So that's the headline. They're talking about all the different statues being taken down, but it's also talking about how we look at statues and what that celebrates, what that means. Sometimes we don't think about that. We think it's just a statue is a remembrance of something in history, but most of the time,
yes, it's
honoring
commemorative.
Something.
Yes,
you're commemorating a person and what they've done in their life. So, what do you think about that? Not all of these are going to be like Confederate generals. Some of these are going to be like from up north. Like some of these guys were still racist, or had some kind of thing, or was misogyny or whatever. Like there's some kind of thing they had going on. But what are your thoughts on that?
I'm okay with whatever. Honestly, a statue coming down does not offend me in any way, especially if there's a pretty, a decent reason to take that statue down. It's not. We're not erasing anything out of the history books. I think people need to learn or need to know what of a dark history that we have. I mean, even in all the glory of America's ancient, history or whatever, it's like all of that was also unfortunately overshadowed by some really, really, really dark moments and things that happened. So, yeah, I definitely think we would not want to commemorate or celebrate those individuals. I definitely think there's a need to the removal of the Confederate flag is and this is my personal opinion, but I definitely think that's a positive thing that's not commemorated. I don't think taking a statue down is erasing history. I think it's because we have a natural inclination to celebrate things that are statued. I mean,
yes.
we celebrate. That's a commemoration of a great
go see them.
thing. We go see them. We take pictures in front of them. So I wouldn't let my kid take a picture in front of that. But at the same time, it's like, how many Christians were vehemently opposed to the statues that went up in Detroit or Birmingham, whatever, that were like demonically inspired statues? Like literally like four-headed goats and stuff like that. We would hate that, but how dare you take down a statue of somebody who had slaves? And it just doesn't make any sense to me. So I think if the statue is representative of something poor, then yeah, take it down.
Last one, the super serious topic. What should Chuck E. Cheese do now? So there's a thing on Twitter.
Super serious topic. Plethora.
I'll give you a plethora of ideas. Hey man, just say what comes to mind.
What should Chuck E. Cheese do now? What does that mean?
Here's the deal.
Explain.
His career is in
His
jeopardy.
career?
Yes.
Are you referring to Chuck E. Cheese as a person?
He's a mascot. So
he's sitting in his house somewhere, a big giant rat sitting there watching TV, drinking his sorrows away.
Well, there's a fad on Twitter because Chuck E. Cheese may be going bankrupt.
Okay.
So they're saying what's next, and so there's like different Twitter pictures, like he could do the whole Times Square thing where he could go and you could take your picture with him and pay $5. Like he could do that for a living. So maybe that's a job.
What should Chuck E. Cheese do now that
it's called hashtag What's next for Chuck E. Cheese.
I'm thinking, well, he's not going to want to be like the representative for Serval, and which shout out to Serval, because they've helped us out a couple times at our church. So he's not going to want to be that. I mean, I don't know. I think, unfortunately, the guy is out of luck. He's going to have to learn a new trade.
Okay, so there's a couple of ideas that have been given out on Twitter.
Okay.
I'll give you some.
Yeah, give me some.
One is he can join the famous forgotten childhood eatery character from McDonald's, the Hamburglar.
That's awesome.
Next thing is
for the French fry guy.
Yeah.
I can't remember his name now. Really, Ronald McDonald. Whatever happened to Ronald McDonald? You don't see like... We used to have
he may be in the next Pee Wee Herman movie.
Do you remember Union City Walmart?
Yes.
You used to have like this little bench. They had a McDonald's inside the Walmart. Yep. They had this little bench where you could go sit beside Ronald McDonald, a statue. And they removed it. They've been ahead of the game this whole time. They were removing statues way before it was cool. Yeah, I don't know.
So another job somebody had for him was just do whatever Jeffrey's up to. And Jeffrey was the giraffe from Toys R Us.
Oh my goodness.
So he's out of a job as well.
Yes, he is.
And there's actually a picture of him inside an empty Toys R Us store, which I think is really great.
That's awesome.
And they said another one was, well, naturally, Jeffrey and Chucky now work at Amazon's fulfillment center. So that's also
right.
a job. Then there was the death and rebirth, which has Chuck E. Cheese coming out of a tomb on top of a Jesus body.
So I was about to say, is that sacrilegious?
It's Jesus wearing a Chuck E. Cheese head.
I think it might be sacrilegious, so I don't know how I feel about that.
And then there's also, he's going to become a rapper.
He could be a star of like a Disney movie.
Or they could change all these Chuck E. Cheese into Spirit
Halloween stores, and they could be there forever. That's awesome. My wife would love that. My wife's the only person in the world who, when Spirit Halloween shows up, look, I'm a pastor. I know I'm supposed to be vehemently against Halloween. And dude, you take whatever stance you want to. If you're against Halloween, be against it. If you're not against it, don't be against it. But like my wife grew up, she loves Halloween. And so whenever Spirit Halloween stores come around, she loves going in there. And I'm like, you're so creepy. Like, this is not a fun store to go into. I don't want to be here, but I do because I love her. So. Yeah.
So I'll give you two more.
Yeah.
He moves to Paris.
Ratatouille.
To pursue his lifelong dream of becoming a chef, but it says chief. They misspelled it on their Twitter. That's awful. That's terrible.
That's
or
funny.
Former supergroup with surviving members of Showbiz Pizza.
I don't even know what Showbiz Pizza is.
Showbiz was before Chuck E. Cheese.
Oh.
I remember Showbiz. I went to Showbiz for my birthday. Of course, I am old, so that's obviously telling. But I went to Showbiz a couple of times. Once just for my birthday, and these are the characters from Showbiz. They're super creepy.
Never even heard of them.
Showbiz Pizza.
Wow.
Where a kid can be a kid.
Well, maybe he could start a podcast.
We'll have him on.
Chuck E. Cheese, if you're listening right now, you are formally invited to come be on our podcast.
Yes.
We'd love to hear. He could be on 60 Minutes.
Yes.
Tell his life story on ESPN 30 for 30. I don't know how they would make that pertaining to sports at all. But.
Oh, man, that's so funny. Those are our headlines.
Well, I hope you guys enjoyed that today. So, hey, you know what, dude? Stop it.
What? Oh, let's go.
It's time.
Let's
it's time for the Stop It segment. All right, so he had headlines. I'm taking this one today. Our Stop It segment today, as always, is something near and dear to our hearts, to everyone, even Chelsea. She's sitting back here producing for us right now. It's near and dear to her heart. I know it's near and dear to my heart, and it's near and dear to Josh's heart. Our Stop It segment today is, if you are a parent and your child is going to be playing baseball this summer, and I guess this could even roll into basketball, football, cheerleading, hockey, you name it, whatever it is your child plays, whatever sport your child plays, softball, whatever.
Right.
If you're a parent, let the coach be the coach, and you just be the parent. Mm-hmm. Now, if you're a parent and coach, then you be the coach. Okay? Fantastic. But say you're not the parent coach, and you are not helping at all the practices, and your kid is 7 years old. They don't need you screaming at them from the stands, okay?
Right.
I am a little bit more understanding, which I don't personally love parents screaming at referees or umpires because I think it's pointless because, like, in the big scheme of things, your kid's probably not going to be a professional athlete. None of this even matters. Whatever, all that different stuff. But I'm a little bit more, for whatever reason, okay with parents getting on umpires or referees because it's kind of part of the nature of sports. Mm-hmm. It's a part of the entertainment factor for the crowd to get into it. I like getting into it. I never like scream and cuss or do mean things, but it's like, oh, what kind of call was that? Whatever.
Right.
But like parents who scream at their kids from the stands, that's the most gut-wrenching thing to watch, period.
Let them be kids.
Your kids don't need you to do that. You're not making your kids better by doing that. In fact, you're embarrassing them.
Yeah.
And you're hurting them, and you're probably hurting their self-confidence as well. If you have something to say to your kids, say it to them after the game, after you've hugged them and said, hey, what a great job you did today. I love watching you play sports. But if your kid is, like, striking out, don't stand up and destroy him in front of the crowd.
Right.
I don't know. What do you have to say about that? I know you're a parent, you're a coach, all of that different stuff. So,
well, most of the time, parents don't understand, like – I've coached different levels of like baseball, like T-ball, machine pitch, little league, and especially when they're really, really young, you're just trying to get the kid to pay attention for 3 seconds.
To not pick up grass and put it in their mouth.
Right.
Yeah.
Or kick their teammate.
Right.
Or whatever they're doing, And parents are like, well, I thought we should have done this. I'm like, we're not strategizing how to win a ball game. We're trying to get a kid to pay attention for 5 seconds and not pee in his pants or like, he'll stop farting or whatever you're doing. It's just, really distracting.
Absolutely.
Like, and a lot of parents don't understand it. Most do, some don't. And some will just, they don't discipline their kids and they bring them to the field and it's like chaos.
Yeah.
and they're just looking at you, and you're looking at them. So then you whisper something really crazy to the kid, like what you're going to do if they don't stop doing whatever it is that they're doing, and you hope they don't tell their parents.
Wow. Now we know.
Yeah. So
the tricks of the trade.
Yeah, you whisper. It's like, hey, do it again, I'm going to throw you over the fence. It's like, so I did have to threaten one kid. We have an awards ceremony, and he kicked dirt on other kids' shoes. I said, hey, man, quit kicking dirt on people. So he kicked dirt on my shoes. And so I told him, I was like, if you do that again, I will whip you.
Right here.
Then I will carry you to your
everybody.
parents, and you will not get a trophy. You will get nothing. I will send you to your parents, and you will not be out here for the rest of the remainder of the
coach
time.
my kid in T-ball, please. I give you permission right now before I even have kids.
Oh,
if my
man.
kid does something stupid, spank them. Okay?
It's
Please
so
do it.
hard.
You
It's
have
tough.
full permission to discipline my children.
It's tough because you are doing all those things for free. You actually pay to do those things because
Right.
you have to be certified to do those
Right.
things. You have to take a test. It's like an hour long,
Mm-hmm.
and you pay $50.
You have to be certified to coach.
T-ball.
Okay, well, that's the first time I've ever heard that. I grew up in South Fulton where
Well, it's all
you could
different
be
now.
you could be homeless and didn't even have a kid on the team and coached a T-ball game. Oh, certified. You don't need to be you just need to be breathing. That
Yeah.
was pretty much it.
Yeah.
Breathing and willing and able.
Well, now that's a little different, but it's still a thing where it's not very appreciated, and
No, it's definitely not.
you definitely have to fight some of the. There's a lot of competitiveness in that. There's certain guys that want their teams to win the league and go to All-Stars, and
Well, be a coach then.
yeah, but
That's what I'm saying.
it's
like,
just some of it's too much for
oh,
the kids.
I totally agree. But it's like I can handle a more passionate coach because they're putting in the effort. They're at practice. I cannot handle the passionate mom or the passionate dad who's just overly passionate for nothing, just screaming at their kids. I grew up playing football and basketball where literally if a kid missed a three-pointer, their parent, their dad, most of the time it was a dad, would stand up and scream at them in front of everybody, and everyone just feels so cringy because it's like, do I need to say something to this guy? Like, this is weird. Their kid's crying out there because of him. You know, don't do that. So stop doing that.
For sure. That's a good stop it.
Yeah.
And hopefully whoever listens to this, maybe you're that parent.
Be convicted.
Yeah. Please just stop. Just for your kids. Like they don't need it. They don't want it.
No.
It's not fair to them. So yes, please stop it.
Yeah.
So today, we're not going to go into any other details other than the title. Well, the things we're going to talk about.
Yeah. Yeah.
Obviously, this week we talked about racism.
Yeah.
I think last night was a big conversation.
Absolutely.
It pushed a lot of things forward. In almost every episode since we've started this podcast, we had hit on it in some way from our passion because it's been such a huge.
Yeah. Even if it wasn't fully about that, it's come up.
Something is at least somebody, a guest or who we've had on us talked about it or whatever. We talked last night, and Nick Glenn made a really good point talking about church leadership had failed in that area.
Yeah. Yeah.
Why is it that we don't talk about racism in church? Like, what? I know we're going to talk about several things we don't talk about that we're quiet on.
Sure.
And I know, let's preface it. Sundays are great for reaching people that are lost.
Yes, absolutely.
And to inviting someone to church and for the first time getting to experience God like that, that's amazing, and that's what we're for. It's what we do. It's why we do what we do. But I feel like at times there are certain topics we just need to talk about.
Absolutely. See, and here's a very solid point that everyone needs to understand is that even biblically, when church started, the idea of gathering together, it wasn't actually it wasn't for reaching lost people. That was not the idea behind church gathering together. The initial reason that churches began that is for believers to gather together.
Yeah.
It was for the enrichment, encouraging, conviction, teaching of the believers.
Right.
It was not an outreach tool. Recently, obviously in the last, 50 years, we'll say, last 50 years, maybe even more than that, it has become a place where, especially if you're doing it in kind of like what we do, it's become like a double you've got the best of both worlds. Like, not only are you teaching believers and pushing them and growing them, but if you do it right, you can also preach the gospel and reach a lost and dying world. At the same time, people who maybe don't know the Lord can come into, and that's our hope, I think, in everything that we do, is that every single Sunday, it's not just geared toward the person who's already a believer, who is just wanting to grow or needs to grow, but it's also beneficial. And it's not just like the last 5 minutes salvation moment, but it's also beneficial for somebody who's never been to church, who does not know the Bible story. It's like every week I have to preface, we may have people here who've never heard this story, even though it's the story of Samson. And most people that have grown up in church know that story. The goal is that someone who's never been to church can come and also, have that moment as well. And so I want to preface kind of like what we're talking about and saying, just like you're saying, there is a need for churches to not only be churches that can reach lost people, that can preach the message of Jesus. Because the thing is, man, Jesus preached he talked about way more. He hit on way more than just believe in me because in me you have eternal life. Right. But I mean, obviously that is like the backbone of everything that we talk about. But there's also moments, all you have to do is read through the Gospels, where really specific things are hit on, really specific things that specific churches, specific communities are dealing with and need to grow in. And sometimes it's not specifically about put your faith in Jesus, because people have hit that. They've done that. So, now we need to grow in some other areas too. So, sorry, I hope that wasn't like a rabbit trail.
We always, most of the time we'll hit those topics.
Yeah.
It's usually after something's already happened.
Right.
Something's happened, now we have to address it. And I wish there was a way we could do that beforehand. Like we had a consistent basis of like teaching our church, and I don't even know what avenue is the best for that.
Sure.
Is groups the best avenue? Should the pastor have curriculum or something laid out for the small groups to go in and really hammer that stuff out together?
Yeah.
Or is it done on Sundays? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. I don't know what the solution is, but like I feel like we ignore so much in the Bible that when kids get older, they're like, why don't we talk about this?
Right.
Then they don't even believe in God anymore, and they're mad, and they're upset. So I feel like we talk about all these things that we don't do well that lead people to leave the church.
Yeah.
I think conversation should be the top of the list.
Absolutely.
We don't talk about the things that people have questions about or are wondering about or are struggling in or in the tension in or are experiencing. We push past those things and like, God's great. And He is. God is for you. God is for me. He is for all of us. But we have to talk about some of these things that people are experiencing in their life. So racism being one of those things like that we've talked about for the past few weeks. We talked really heavily on last night.
Yeah.
How to, and then in the end, after that night's over, people are coming up to us and going, thank you so much for talking about that. Yeah. Thank you for addressing this.
Yeah.
Well, you could do that on a Sunday.
Absolutely.
I mean, you could address that
I think
with your
we
church.
Should. I think you should talk about stuff like that on Sunday.
Because like, let's just look like, did our church show up for that? Like,
right.
So like they didn't even know what was going to be said, and they were uncomfortable. So you have a lot of these little uncomfortable tensions in the air on some of these subjects, and people aren't just. I don't get it. Maybe it's because most pastors in America aren't really leading their church.
Yeah.
Maybe it's because there's a team of people that lead the church that tell the pastor kind of where he can go and what he can do.
Right. And
if he gets too close to certain subjects, they're like, you need to back off.
Or he'll be fired.
Right. So maybe that's the problem. I don't know. Like, and I get like most churches are in, 50 to 200 years old.
Yeah.
I know that's a long gap, but old.
No, they're older. They've been around for a while at this point.
The founding pastor's been gone for 3 decades.
Right.
And they've had 10 since then or 5 or whatever. And they don't trust anyone to really lead their church except themselves.
Yeah.
I think maybe that's what we get into. But But I just keep wondering, like, what it would look like to really talk about some of this stuff. Because some of the stuff we talk about, like, people get upset.
Yeah.
And people will talk to you and like, oh, I really wish you wouldn't talk about that. But I don't know where else to carry it.
Yeah.
I mean,
I get it.
If we say we carry everything to the cross, but we don't carry everything into the church.
Yeah.
And I get some things that are really hard to talk about. And I don't want to, ever separate myself like from church and like this podcast and be like, well, because we could do that. You could say too much and make people really upset or whatever. But you want to honor that. But at the same time, I just feel like we should be able to be honest.
Yeah, I think, and this is just me. But I think one of the things that we've failed at, and this is me as a 27-year-old who doesn't. I think one of the things the church in large has failed at. Who cares about my opinion about what the church of large has failed at? But in my experience, one of the reasons that I was so bored with church, other than the fact that I never went anywhere where it was done excellently or where people actually cared about it or there was any passion put into it whatsoever, or just total hypocrisy, which every church is full of hypocrites because every single one of us is. We preach a message that we don't perfectly live all the time. Mm-hmm. But I think it's really dangerous. And one of the things that it just hurt me a lot is when churches are quiet about subjects that we shouldn't be quiet about. When churches refuse to talk about subjects that humanity needs to talk about, that we need answers on, that we need truth spoken into it. I mean, we're told preach the gospel and preach in grace and in truth. But like it's dangerous to know that there are topics that people are asking questions about and then just to not touch on them at all. It's obviously dangerous to touch on them and say the wrong thing or preach the wrong thing, but it's just as dangerous to not talk about it because then you're leaving people to their own ideas. You're leaving people to develop their own theology, their own belief system from Netflix or Hulu or a pastor that you don't even think is like theologically correct, or their friends or culture or the school, you name it. So even as a youth pastor, I was never afraid. I always wanted to hear, what was the sign that you heard the other day? Or you were
It's actually coming back from Huntington, coming back into town, and it says, parents, talk to your kids about drinking before their friends do.
Sure.
That's basically what we're saying with church. Like, talk to your kids before other people do.
Because it's not even, it's not even just drinking. And I wrote all this stuff down, but like for us right now, racism, it's something that church people, we historically haven't touched on until now, which it's awesome that we are now. But it's like, can we continue to do that?
Yeah.
But how we spend our money, even churches, very rarely do churches like talk about tithing and giving, but even just taking that another step, like God's expectation for how you spend your money, the kind of clothes you buy, the kind of cars you buy, the kind of houses you live in, the kind of ways that we waste our money, and God is expecting us to not live like that. Then you've got, of course, pornography. Like very rarely do you hear anybody like really even say that word, but it's an issue that is ravaging Christians, male and female alike. And yet you rarely hear preachers openly even talk about it. Which it was funny because I grew up in a church culture where it was openly talked about, and it quit being a taboo topic because people understood this is a problem and we need to talk about this. I remember coming to Overflow dancing around the subject one time and talking about how as a teenager I dealt with pornography, and someone came up to me crying and saying that was the first time they'd ever heard a preacher say that word or say that that was a problem. And I was like, whoa, I forgot that churches quit talking about that kind of stuff. But even, dude, take it another step. Gifts of the Spirit. We don't really talk about the Holy Spirit a whole lot. Mental health problems. We just write that off as demonic, or you need to read the Bible more, you need to pray more. Of course, drinking, gluttony, and we don't touch on that. When was the last time you heard a preacher talk about the sin of overeating and gluttony and stuff like that? I've never heard that. Women in leadership, Like, we have theologies based around it, so let's talk about it. Why do we believe that they can't be? Why do we believe that they can be? Just ton. I mean, all the way down to the conversation. You know, I got in a conversation with someone the other day, and I won't get into this one heavy, because it's definitely more of a table conversation to have with someone. But it's like, well, can someone who's dealing with homosexuality go to heaven? Well, that seems to be something that would be good for churches to talk about. Because what do we believe about that? You know, it's what people need to hear. It's what our country needs to hear. It's what our church people need to hear. And if they don't have a pastor who's willing to talk about it, well, they're going to talk about it from someone else. It's like being a youth pastor and having kids whose parents never had the sex talk with them. Well, you want to know where they went and learned about sex from? The locker room. And at that point, they don't get to learn anything good about it. They don't learn the right and the wrong way to have that conversation, or what sex is even all about. And so then, because no one in their home or no one in their church was ever willing to talk about a subject like that, they almost demonized it. They end up going and talking about it anyways. They developed their own beliefs. And then now you're having to try and come back and like chop away at a foundation that's already been made. So it's really dangerous that the church has been quiet for so long. In fact, and if you mind, I know I'm talking a lot right now. When I see it, and I saw this online even earlier today, and I thought it was about a different subject, but I thought it was an awesome example of how dangerous just knowing that there's an issue, knowing that there's a subject to talk about, and just not talking about it actually is. Have you ever watched Harry Potter?
Yes.
Okay, now I am not trying to make a case about whether church people can or cannot watch Harry Potter. I want everyone to have their own convictions. I want you to be able to weigh everything that you watch against the Bible, whether that be Disney or Harry Potter or Lord of the Rings, you name it. I want us to have our own convictions. I want us to hear from the Lord. If he tells you don't watch that, don't watch it. If the Holy Spirit's okay with it, then do it. So I'm not trying to encourage anybody either way, but I've read the Harry Potter books. I've seen the movies. And one of the characters in Harry Potter is a guy named Voldemort. And he is this evil wizard that all the other wizards, these good wizards, are terribly afraid of. And even though he is all but dead, they won't even mention his name. Okay, he has zero power anymore. He's barely even alive. Just little bits and pieces of him are alive, but he has no power in the wizard world. But they're so terrified to say his name that they refer to Voldemort as he who must not be named. And they won't even say his name. And so because they won't talk about him, they're all still terrified of him, even though he doesn't have any power in their lives, thus giving him the power.
Giving him power.
Giving him all that fear, all that to be able to still control and manipulate people, all because they won't even say his name. And then rises a group of people who aren't afraid to say his name, and those people are the ones that end up, setting everybody else free from his power. And I just find that to be a really similar it's just an example of kind of how in church a lot of times there's a lot of topics that we would rather just say, oh, we don't talk about that. That topic must not be named. It's there, but we're not gonna touch on it. We're not gonna touch on any of the topics that I talked about just a second ago. We know it's a problem. We know it's there, but it's hurting so many people, and there's so many different ideas around it and whatever, that we're just not going to talk about it at all, in hopes that if we don't talk about it, it'll just go away. And that's not what happens. In not talking about it, we're actually giving that problem, that addiction, that secret sin, that lifestyle, even more of an opportunity to thrive and grow and destroy people's lives. Whereas if we talk about it, and we hit it from an angle of truth, and this is what Scripture says about this, this is what the Bible says about this, then we are confronting that face to face. Well, now no longer it's not a scary topic anymore, because we've been taught the truth regarding it, and now there aren't people, because they're going to learn something. Your people, your kids, your friends, they're going to learn it from somewhere about any of those topics. And I would rather, as a church, be able to get out in front of that stuff and say, this is what the Bible teaches. This is what God says about it. This is why we believe this about this. And at least to where no one is left with the excuse, well, we never talked about it. I just didn't know. When you talk about things, you empower people to grow and to develop their own belief system, and you put that responsibility in someone else's hand. You're giving them the truth, and when someone else has been told the truth, now it's not on your shoulders anymore. Now it's on them to have to respond to the truth. So that's some of my takes on that, I guess, and just not talking about certain things, giving it that Voldemort mentality. I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
I just don't. We have authority in Jesus.
Uh-huh.
Like, Jesus has conquered everything. Why can't we be honest and truthful about everything that people deal with? Like, God's not afraid. He knows that it's happening.
I think it also takes that fear and gives us confidence.
Yeah.
Like, we can walk around and live life in confidence.
Absolutely.
Like not being afraid of not knowing, but having the information, being equipped. Wouldn't that be like carrying the armor of Christ, being equipped to handle things in life and being able to walk through this? Another thing, like, do people get mad about Harry Potter? Is that a thing?
Oh, dude.
I didn't know there was a thing.
Yeah, you're cut from a different church culture cloth than I am. I historically have been raised since I was about 16 or 17 in a very holiness, which of course I'm all about holiness and right living and purity and and obeying God and not all that stuff. But I came from a little bit of a church culture where absolutely sometimes more than people were willing to speak up for issues like, even racism or abortion or any kind of stuff like that. They were so ready to go to war against Harry Potter, of all things, which was so interesting to me because some of the same parents who hated Harry Potter, they let their kids watch Snow White. And they let their kids watch Cinderella with, fairy godmother. Or they love Lord of the Rings, which is not inherently Christian. It's just not. Can Christian metaphors be found in it? I mean, sure, but it's just not inherently Christian. In Chronicles of Narnia, which that is a very Christian-themed thing, but they use words like magic. And, God, you name it, man. All of Disney. If you watch Disney, you can't watch, you can't go and demonize Harry Potter, but but I understand where a group of people are coming from. Of course, witchcraft is evil. It's all of that stuff. So it's I'm not biased to hearing what someone has to say and how that could be wrong and bad. But yeah, dude, I remember growing up in a church where it was like you weren't allowed to talk about it if you did watch Harry Potter. It's still a very controversial topic. I follow pastors who, if you mention that you've seen or watched Harry Potter, you'll have 50 comments on your feed about that. So I'm not trying to take up for Harry Potter. I want people to follow their convictions on that. I know someone's going to say, well, my conviction is the Bible, and the Bible says witchcraft is evil, and the Bible also says gluttony is a deadly sin, and the Bible also says lying is evil. But we watch TV material with murder and with lying. Yeah. And I'm not trying to justify and say, well, you can just watch whatever you want either there. I'm just saying, like, you can't just pick one avenue that you're willing to go to war against and not go to war against all of it. That's I true. Guess. So that's to each their own on that subject. So yeah.
So speaking of gluttony, church never talks about it. Is it because we like the buffet, like after church on Sunday?
Are you kidding me? Most of us listening to this podcast
we hit the buffet.
We grew up in church.
6,000 calories, go home, take a nap.
What happened after every Sunday? How did we raise money for youth events? We had a big potluck.
Carb load.
We had all the spaghetti dinners and what was it? Spaghetti, bread, lemonade, and sweet tea and like green beans or something. And you pay $5 to get in, and it all goes towards the youth.
There's always that one person that brings food that you're just not sure of.
Always.
You don't trust it?
No. And I'm the guy that brings like popcorn. It's like a church-wide potluck. And I'm like, hey, baby, what do we have? Okay, let's pop these 3 bags of popcorn. We'll get to church. We'll warm it up so it tastes like it's fresh. And we have this big bowl of popcorn. Everyone's like, oh, I didn't think about bringing popcorn. And I'm like, that's because you're cheap. Or you're not cheap and I am cheap. So one time I went to a church potluck and I so did not have money. and this is whenever I was a younger, like 19-year-old maybe.
Right.
I so did not have money that I went to McDonald's and spent $10 on a bunch of French fries and put them in a bowl that I found at the church and brought French fries to it. And they were like, "These are so good. Who does this?" And I was like, "Nobody, because other people have money and I don't." So
that's too funny.
Yeah, I think, but to like go along with that, I definitely think gluttony is a huge issue. And really, man, we'll talk about this later on this summer. We're going to hit, actually, we're going to hit this topic later on this summer, not just gluttony. It's a lesson in excess is what it is. It's not, I mean, inherently, there is obviously practicality. Like, if you eat too much, you're going to develop diseases, you're going to die, like different stuff like that. But it's also a lesson in excess. I mean, if you look throughout the New Testament, over and over and over again, we're given lessons in excess. Being greedy. What is that? It's a lesson in excess.
Right.
Being given over to much wine, getting drunk. It's a lesson in excess.
Right.
That's why you see Jesus. He never says don't drink, but he does. Absolutely, the whole Bible condemns not getting drunk, eating. The way that we eat. It's all lessons in self-control. In excess. He's not saying that all of this is bad. He's saying all of this that you can't control, and in excess, that is a problem, though. And it's stuff we don't talk about in church a lot. I mean, I don't know.
And I think in everything that's listed, that you listed a while ago, excess is the word.
Yeah.
Not being able to do it in moderation, not being able to handle it.
Yeah.
But our society is so
sex.
excess-driven.
Yeah, even sex, man.
Yeah.
God, he never says sex isn't good. He actually says it's a gift from God, but not in excess in terms of it's limited to one person. So if you can do it in moderation to having sex with the one person you're married to, sex is fantastic. But then if that begins to be something that you can't limit to just that one person, that's when it's a sin.
Right.
Almost everything that we hit on just then, other than pornography it's not okay to have a little bit of pornography. Not
moderation is not good there.
Say that, but a lot of this stuff that we mentioned is can definitely fall under that category of just excess, and it's a lot of stuff that we never talk about, and that it's dangerous to not talk about that kind of stuff as a church, because people need to hear that. I mean, people need to hear that.
Yeah, I feel like our kids grow up. Even I grew up like very uneducated on so many things in life. I never heard anything in church about any of the things I was struggling with.
Right.
And it was like I didn't know what to do. Obviously, I knew some things are wrong, some things aren't, but you got to manage that tension sometimes, and you don't know how because you've never been taught, because nobody ever talks about it.
Right.
And I feel like that's why we don't have a voice in culture. I mean, I know in some areas we do, but for the most part, we play catch up because we don't actively or proactively do anything. We react to everything.
Right.
And I don't want to I know we kind of give church a hard time sometimes, but we work at church. It's our life. It's our calling. So we're just trying to help make it better.
Absolutely. I don't think there are two people that I know that burn for, of course, first and foremost, just God himself.
Yeah.
Loving God, growing in the Holy Spirit, knowing Jesus better. And then number two right there, it becomes our families. Love, we love our wives. You love your kids. I don't have any kids, but I love my parents. You know what I'm saying? But then at number three, church it's got to be number three for us. Probably sometimes it seeps into number two and number one. Yeah, honestly, it's probably one of our biggest struggles. We can't even go to the gym without texting each other. Hey, what do you think about this? So it's like I just agree with them. I know we're always harping on churches and how we think churches need to do things wrong. And the truth is, we don't do things right. We mess up so much. We do not have all the answers. We are the furthest from a perfect church that you're going to find. The people in our church are not perfect. The leaders in our church are not perfect. The way that we do things are not perfect. And the reason we talk about it is because it's constantly what we're thinking about. How can we get better? How can we do things better? Because we just don't want to settle for being bad. I feel like for a long time, churches have just kind of settled with, well, this is the way it is. And because of just tradition. It's just mostly tradition. And so, I don't know, man. So we, as much as we pick on church culture and stuff, we love church.
We do.
Our wives have to pull us away from church because we see the value in it so much so, and we've both been so impacted greatly by not just God, but by His church and by His people and community. So I don't want this to ever come across as if we don't.
We're just very passionate about
it.
So we're going to say things. We're going to be loud. We're going to obviously voice our opinions and what we think, but it is important to us. And being a better church is important.
Absolutely. And one of the things that comes along with that is like growing. And so maybe even some of the things that we say right now, 20 years from now, we'll think, can't believe we said that. That was wrong.
That was really dumb.
Like, whatever. I hope that's the case because I hope we're always growing. You know, this will be a perfect receipt for someone to have to say, wow, they've really matured, in the last 10 years or over the last 20 years. And this is more or less a journal, but it's kind of like a public journal for everybody else just to kind of read at times. So that our growth gets to be documented,
Yeah.
So
that's really well put.
I don't know, man.
I mean, I'm at a place where I just feel like we've got to be honest.
Yeah. Yeah. Even if we're wrong. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean,
even if we are wrong.
Yeah. Just be honest.
I'd rather be honest and wrong and then learn from that.
Yeah.
Than just not really know where I stand on anything and stay silent the entire time. Right. Because you can come back and apologize or renege or fix something, but
because I don't even think you can reach people until you're honest with yourself.
No way. Not a chance.
You're not even.
People smell dishonesty from a mile away. People smell disgenuine conversation and hearts. I mean, it doesn't take anything. You can walk in, you can hear one sermon and know, man, this does not feel like it's from the heart. This does not even feel like this person care. I mean, you can sense that. People are not crazy, so.
That's true. That's very true.
Moment of silence. I feel like this has just got so internal as we're talking about this right now. I wasn't expecting it to go.
Because this is what we're thinking. This is where we're at.
This is literally it. This is just our open, honest
thoughts.
This
is where, because I'm trying to figure some of these things out on my own.
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest thing for me is trying to figure it out on my own, but also being able to channel that. And then you have to be careful who you talk to. Right. Because someone will be like, you don't need to be talking about that. Or they don't have any kind of answers because they never thought about it themselves. Right. And then, I know these first few years of just my walk have been a lot of grasping at issues.
Yes.
Because even to be really, really transparent, we talked about the drinking thing a couple of weeks ago on the podcast.
Yeah.
About if you're with your wife and you have a glass of wine or whatever. I didn't do that when I got saved.
Yeah.
I had to have time to learn, or not learn, but get my heart right.
Right.
And really go after God and what He had for my life. And then that wasn't a big deal to me anymore.
Right.
It just wasn't a thing where, I want to do that to get drunk, or I want to do that to party or have fun.
Yeah.
It was just being out to eat, and it's what does this taste like?
Absolutely.
Oh, it was really good. It was really good. We had a steak, we had a potato, we had a salad, some kind of side, and then we had a glass of wine. It was an amazing meal. I had a great time with my wife.
Right.
And then it helped us just appreciate our dinner, and it tasted good. So knowing all those things, though, but if you say out loud that you don't think it's wrong, everybody jumps to conclusions.
Right.
And they're like, well, you're promoting for people to get drunk. It's not what I'm promoting at all.
Right.
I had to have a complete change of heart. I had to have a complete moment of shifting my life in another direction.
Right.
Before that was something that I would even consider.
Yeah.
But as I read, as I learned, as I looked at topics like that, what is the line, what all these other things, and then people in the Bible didn't always get that right either.
Right.
But it's there.
Yeah.
It's very
Absolutely.
visible. It's
Yeah.
very, it's voiced. It's something that Jesus was a part of. So it's not something I believe it's wrong, but you have to be really careful
Absolutely.
what audience you bring that to.
Yeah.
And this podcast, obviously, is people that we don't even know who's going to hear this.
Uh-huh.
So, and that's for me, it's personal because it was something that was a part of my walk through years of learning and
Right. But
growing.
like, even the best part about it is that even if we hit a topic that like is a little bit, I don't know, risque, at least it's got someone thinking about it.
Yeah.
What do they believe about it?
Right.
Maybe someone
Same.
goes on a personal journey about, and it may take you 3 years in the making, but like someone goes on a personal journey and they get freedom from something, or they do talk about it. It doesn't have to be drinking. It could be any of this stuff that we're talking about. But like, if you never talk about it, then we never talk about it. We never think about it. We never recover from it. There's no way to heal from something that you don't talk about.
That's true.
It's impossible.
Yeah, that's true. And so, even with all the topics that are really hard for people to talk about, I know drinking's one of them. I know pornography is a big deal in church. Nobody wants to address that, even though half the church is doing it.
Even just addictions in general, man.
Yeah.
I mean, whether it be tobacco, of course, pornography, sexual addiction, drug addiction, pill addiction, eating disorders, man, you name it, a social media addiction to where you're constantly posting and you're wanting affirmation from other people's likes. Attention addiction. You're just always wanting people to compliment you. Or, hey, gosh, how many problems do we deal with as people that we never touch on. We just never talk about them,
Our problems outnumber our conversations.
For sure, 100%.
So that's hard. Like, we're not having these talks enough. We're not, this whole idea for this podcast was to create an outlet to say things, to talk about things that we don't get to talk about all the time.
Right.
And
believe me, everything that we talk about on here, it will make its way onto a Sunday morning sermon. It will.
Right.
It'll just be in a way more thought out, a way more articulated, way more scripture filled format. But there's nothing that we've talked about on here that I am even close to afraid to talk about on a Sunday. In fact, nearly everything we've talked about on here, I already have a plan to hit on this year.
Right.
Like, I have it scheduled out already. So I'm wildly excited to do that kind of stuff. That's why it's like sometimes I don't even want to be like, oh, those are just our personal thoughts, because my personal thought will end up being a sermon at some point.
Right.
I mean, my conviction on something, my whatever, is going to make its way into a sermon. There's no doubt about it.
Right.
And so any of my personal thoughts are subject to, can I say this from the platform? I mean, they just are, because it's like, I wouldn't say anything on here that I wouldn't say from our platform. Like, they're literally nothing.
Right.
I would just articulate it better and give it a lot more context, pretty much, is all I would do. So, I'm very excited about some of that, though.
And I don't know what it means for other people that are on the same journey, to have these questions, to have these thoughts, to have these struggles, these tensions in their mind, what's right, what's wrong. But I don't know, man. I just feel like we have to get better at being able to feel like we can talk about it.
Yeah, my wife, when she first became a Christian, she was a part of a small group that helped her a lot. Her small group leaders were huge for her, so I encourage you, if you're not in a small group, get in one. But at the same time, she was around a bunch of kids who quickly demonized subjects that, her having grown up in church, she'd literally never heard talked about before, ever.
Right.
She didn't even know that like certain things were sins. I mean, she did not grow up in church, period. And so she goes to small group, and the first night in there, they're telling her how it's a sin for her to listen to secular music at all. And she's like, and so she's like trying to do all this stuff because she feels like God hates her because she's doing all this stuff. And it's like, dude, you got to know where someone's at in their walk with God. Like, you got to be willing to have these conversations and not like jump to conclusions when people are having them, and like be able to bring your opinion to it without making someone feel like like a loser for not thinking just like you, or for not having gotten there yet, I guess.
Yeah. Because it's a process.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't just become a Christian and like
Know everything.
every bad habit is gone.
Right.
Every addiction's out the window. You know exactly what to do, what to listen to, how to spend your time. You don't know anything.
Nothing.
You're a newborn.
Mm-hmm.
Like you are literally you're brand new. So I guess that's the frustrating part too, there's all those tensions. Like I listen to secular music, not all the time, but sometimes when I'm working out, when I'm running, whatever, I listen to different things. So I'm also careful because I know what I put in here is in
matters.
here. And
it matters.
I'm always aware of that, and I'm always because I feel like people like me get put in a box to where you can't decide or you straddle the fence too much, or instead of just living my life and just pursuing God, but also being aware and also listening to good songs regardless of who's singing them.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't pump like, something's going to say the F word 4,000 times in my brain.
Right.
But, there's things I listen to that obviously are not Christian. So I don't even want to none of these things that we say are being said to be controversial anyway. They're just thoughts that we have.
Yeah.
And things we're processing right now. So, because the church talks about tithe, they talk about give us your tithe. Obviously we have things we talk about pushing the church forward.
Mm-hmm.
When we give, because me and my wife are big givers, and when we give, it's to push the mission of our church forward.
Yeah.
But like you said earlier about other stuff that we blow our money on, that puts us in really bad positions. I'm bad at that sometimes. When I get really depressed, like super depressed, I'll go buy something. It makes me feel so much better.
There's a word for that.
For 5
What's it called? Where you get bliss from buying something new. Oh my goodness, my wife talks about it all the time. I can't remember. It's okay, but we all have it. It's that little high you get when you buy the new clothes or
it doesn't
the new
last
article of
10
clothing.
minutes.
Right. You wear it the first time and then it's over.
Yeah.
But there is that. It does exist. I just can't remember the name of it. He's looking it up right now. I know he is. I know it.
Let's see
You there
where
yet?
it is.
If you guys are still tuned in with us right now, shout out to you.
7 psychological triggers that cause spending.
I don't know.
Shopper's high.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a different word I'm looking for, but I can't remember. Someone's going to remember it, and you just need to comment or text us what that word is.
There's panic buying.
I don't even know. But
I don't know either.
I don't know, dude. Do you have anything else you want to say before we end this thing? Have we gotten all our thoughts out today? This is what we're thinking.
Let's be a church that's not afraid to talk about whatever that is.
Yeah.
If you're a church, it's more elder-led, more committee-led, whatever, more team-led. Meet with your pastor.
Yeah.
And go, hey, man, let's talk about some of this stuff. Let's get it out there. We haven't talked about racism since we've been in church.
Right.
We haven't talked about how great sex can be as couples, but how you shouldn't do it if you're
not
16
married.
years old. You know what I mean? Just things like that, But be a church that makes history by let's make better history instead of either repeating it or living back in it.
Responding to it, I guess.
Don't react. Let's be proactive in those areas, and let's as a church, all of us together, not just churches, other churches, but let's all of us as a church just be more proactive and just talking, sharing, and give our kids something a roadmap.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, we don't give our kids a roadmap either. We don't.
If we answer the questions we already know they're going to have before they even have them, how much better off would they be?
Yeah.
If we answered them, if we already had the questions answered that we know because we were kids and we were early church people, whatever. If we answered those questions before they hit 16, while they were 11, and then while they were 13, and then while they were 15.
Yeah.
And, I'm not telling you to go have all the really hard, weird conversations when they're 7 years old, but, like,
Right.
if we know that stuff's coming and we were able to hit on it and beat it, jump out the gate and hit it first, then all of a sudden it becomes a topic they've already got a foundation for. So
I'm just putting it on your youth pastor.
Yeah.
Because most of the time I think youth pastors probably deal more with what's going on right now.
Oh, for sure.
In their life, the struggles they're having right now. But like laying some groundwork and going, hey, we're going to be a church that tells our people where we stand.
Yeah.
And how we can be better. And how we can not only reach people, but make each other better, too. I think that's important.
And don't be afraid. Not that we have tons of pastors listening to this, but I think one of the reasons pastors being the mouthpiece of the church are so quiet many times is because they're afraid they may lose a big giver or a big tither.
Yeah.
They may lose a friend, someone who's been there with them for the last 30 years that's going to disagree with them. That's a part of counting the cost of following Christ, is being willing to say what you believe to be the truth. I mean, just the gospel truth that Jesus preached, and not apologize for it, and know that not everyone's going to agree with it, but also knowing that God's going to come through for you. This is the great thing about God, is I'm completely convinced that if we're doing it because we truly believe God's asking us.
Yeah.
There's lines to this statement, okay? I'm not talking about cult leaders and stuff like that. But, like, if you're doing something because you truly believe God has laid this on your heart to do it, and it's really not out of selfish motive or whatever, I'm not thinking God's just going to be up there so angry if he knows your motive in doing this is to please him. That's why I'm never mad about people, even like Pentecostal churches where they've got they wear skirts or their hair's in buns. Dude, they truly believe that is God's expectation for their lives. So I'm never angry at someone doing that. I'm like, you know what? If that's your conviction, I'm happy that you're sticking to it.
Yeah.
I'm happy. I can support that. Like, I'm for
That's
it.
good.
So just, man, don't be so afraid to let God down. God's not going to be, he's not up there waiting for you to fall so that he can strike you with lightning.
He's not.
I had a pastor one time that used to preach this message, and it was my favorite message ever. It was just do something for God. Just do something for God. Say something for God. Say something, man. Help people. Don't just go out and do. I don't know. That's how kind of this podcast even started. We didn't know if we would reach anybody. We were like, we're just going to do something. So, I don't know.
Just to have an avenue to talk and share ideas and thoughts and where we are in our life. And I think we've seen that on both ends, even recently, just how the church wants to avoid certain subjects.
Yeah.
And I think we need to quit.
We don't have to do that anymore.
No, we don't. So, thank you guys for listening. This is the What Are We Thinking podcast, episode 7.
7, yeah.
Wow.
That's amazing. 7 weeks into this thing.
I know, it is.
We hope we have conversations for the other 45 weeks. 45 weeks.
That's good.
That we have left on this thing. So we love you guys. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, comment, review, all that different stuff on this. Whether you're watching on YouTube, whether you're listening to Apple Podcasts or in some other forum, let people know. Respond to us. If you have any topics you'd like us to touch on, if we said anything that you disagreed with, reach out to us and let us know. Leave a comment. Email us. What is the email for this, Josh? Is it
what with Alex and Josh at gmail.com?
What with Alex and Josh at gmail.com. Reach out to us. Let us know. If you have our numbers, call us, text us, whatever. We love all the feedback, man. It's going to help us grow. Yeah. And hopefully it'll help other people grow. So we love you guys, and we hope you enjoy the rest of your day. We are over now.
Yes.